Greetings and welcome to another edition of Caring for Seniors. I am your host, Adrienne Houghton. Each week, I sit down with Oasis senior advisors and we discuss all aspects of senior living. Today, I'm joined by Oasis advisor, Al Begocious, and our lovely guest is a clinical therapist, Miss Andrea Miller. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. So tell me a little bit about Andrea.
Well, I started in this field about 25 years ago as I got my bachelor's in social work in 1996, and then I got my master's in social work in 2000, and then became a licensed clinical social worker in 2018. And in that time, I've worked in several different populations: medical, hospice, working with children and adolescents, older adults, substance abuse, quite a variety of populations.
Goodness me, that's a huge variety.
Yes.
Now, you're the owner of Brain Spotting Therapy USA.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about brain spotting. I say a little because I know there's a lot to tell about it. So let's just touch, what actually is it?
Okay, well, it was founded in 2003, relatively new, by Dr. David Grand, and it's a spinoff of another type of therapy, EMDR. And basically what it is, it's a brain and body-based treatment approach that addresses the trauma that patients have stored in their brain, that maybe they don't even realize that is there. And what we do as brain spotting therapists is we use their visual field to draw out that trauma, because it can be triggered at any moment, and they can have physical issues, mental health issues. And so it just, the longer that patients don't have it addressed, their trauma, trauma is basically any type of helpless feeling, then it can just linger on and become compacted trauma.
Goodness me. And Al, how have you found that this has helped with Oasis?
Well,
not you personally, obviously, but the business.
Well, I've known Andrea for the past several months, and we have started a nice group of seniors and professionals that we meet up first Tuesday of every month over at the Four Rivers Smokehouse on Bay Meadows. And she gives us a little snippet of what's going on in the industry and what she's doing. And I find the application would be good for seniors who have phobias. Some seniors have phobias, and that's where I come in, because I'm dealing with seniors who have fear of falling. And that's a game changer. And I'm looking forward to having Andrea, like for today, talk about what she's doing with phobias with seniors, and then applying that with all of my associates. And I work with a lot of social workers, and I'm a raging fan of Andrea, so I want to share what she talks about today with my social worker groups and have them understand how they could apply what she knows to their seniors.
Yes. So tell me, who would be a perfect example for brain spotting therapy? I mean, there's probably not a perfect example, but do you know, in general?
I think a perfect example would be somebody who's really ready to address their trauma. They just feel stuck and they can't seem to move forward. And, you know, like Al said, somebody that is having maybe fears, phobias, depression, anxiety that doesn't seem to be resolved or addressed, and it just seems to linger. And they really want to try and get past this and through this. Like Al said, you know, so many seniors have a fear of falling. Well, you know, if we go back and I find their brain spot with the client together, there's a reason why they have that fear and phobia that they may not recognize in their conscious brain, but it's in their subconscious brain.
Okay, so here's a wonderful example. Somebody has a fear of falling.
Yes.
They come to you. Walk me through a typical session for brain spotting when perhaps I have this fear of falling.
Okay. So how I would start is I would have the client tell me a little bit about the last time that they fell. and kind of go through that process. Talk to me a little bit about that for maybe 5 or 10 minutes. And at that point, they would probably get activated. They're going to feel it in their body. And so I asked them, what type of feelings come about when you start to talk about this? A lot of times it'll be, scared, embarrassed, feeling alone, feeling ashamed. And then I would ask them, where do you feel that in your body? A lot of clients will say, I feel it in my stomach. I'm feeling really nauseous right now. I feel it in my chest, which is, maybe can indicate anxiety. And then I say, rate it on a scale of 0 to 10. We call it a SUDS level, 10 being the most intense. A lot of times it's the higher numbers, right? And then we start the process. And I work with the patient, the client, to find their brain spot. And we work together to find that using a pointer and going from left to right, up and down. And it's very fascinating because they can find a calm spot and they can also find an activated spot where it's really intense. And they can process at either point. And they can pendulate back and forth to the calm spot or the activated spot. And it's just really fascinating. So then after we do this for about 30, 40 minutes, at the end, I kind of check in, find out how they're doing. And most of the time their numbers are lower, about a 3. Maybe if it's a 5 or 6, that means that we still need to process that the next session.
Wow.
It's absolutely fascinating because it's a relatively new way of doing therapy. What made you turn to brain spotting, do you think?
I think I was speaking to another colleague, another therapist, and she was telling me about brain spotting and how it works so well with her clients. And so I did some research and I started doing the trainings. And then I started doing that with my clients that would agree to try something different. And the results I saw were just absolutely fascinating. Just like in my trainings, I saw volunteers that would come forth and they would work on their trauma. And going from a 10 to a 0 with extensive trauma within a 45-minute session was just really so encouraging and so powerful that I really wanted to bring it to everybody.
So it works a lot faster than other therapies.
Absolutely, absolutely. Wow. It can really it provides rapid and effective change, and it's long lasting. That's the part that I love about it. They don't have parts where they come back.
Right.
It doesn't resurface again. It's almost like they take that capsule out of their brain that has that trauma, and it's resolved.
Now, obviously, somebody who knows that they have a problem, it's slightly easier. What if you're dealing with somebody who doesn't know that they have a problem?
And I've had that happen before too. I'll have a client that maybe a client, and I've read about this in training too, where the client does not know. They know something happened in their childhood, but they don't know exactly what it is, but they just have this really strong, intense feeling. And so we brain spot that. So let's talk about this really strong, intense feeling that you have surrounded by this certain age of your childhood. And we just kind of see where that goes. As they talk about it, they still get the body sensations, they may get the feelings. And, once we find their brain spot, it can either bring it out or they can just know that there is something and then just accept that there was something, but not really know what it was. And it kind of changes their perspective where it doesn't just make them feel stuck.
Will they ever find out what it was?
They may or may not. Yeah. But they kind of shift their perspective to being that, okay, something happened to me when I was a child. I don't know what it was, but I know it was an uncomfortable feeling. And I've accepted that this has happened. And I'm ready to move past that. It just really shifts your perspective.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So, golly, I mean, it's so much to take on. Has anyone actually been connected and watched the brain change as therapy is taking place? Do you know?
I know there's a lot of research being done, and Dr. David Grand, the founder and developer of Brain Spotting, he's working on with a lot of research to get more detail since it is so relatively new.
Yes.
But he noticed it when he was doing extensive therapy with a client who was 16 years old that was a figure skater. This is how it developed. And she wasn't able to do the triple loop. And she tried and tried and tried. And after a year of 90-minute sessions, they were stuck. And so when he was doing a different type of therapy, he switched to something different. And he did the brain spotting. And he noticed that her eyes were wobbling. She was having different facial features than she had before. And then her eyes froze at a specific point.
Yeah.
And then from that moment, all of this unresolved trauma about abandonment from her mother, her parents' divorce, all this information came out.
Started spilling out.
Yes, it started spilling out that had never happened in this year of intense therapy with her. And I get goosebumps just thinking about the story, but the next day she was able to do the triple loop and she's been fine ever since.
Wow.
I know. I mean, not every client
Obviously
happens, where it's going to happen like that. But, she was 16, so she didn't have years of trauma, as opposed to an older adult that may have had years of trauma.
Of course.
So it may take obviously a little bit longer.
So Al, when you come across someone and you think, gosh, this person is perfect for Andrea, do you introduce them by way of the meetup, or do you just give her a number? I mean, it's not an easy thing to deal with, is it?
No, but at this particular point, I have voraciously put her name out there within my senior social media, and I think you've gotten some people who have become interested. Close to my heart is working with veterans, and so I want to entertain the idea are veterans who have had PTSD, and I mean going back to World War II, who have never resolved some of these issues. That's where I think you're going to be a real big help to people that I work with. And our relationship is still blossoming. I mean, we're not there yet as really clinical partners, but I feel strong enough that this is a workable solution for seniors.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, and you talk about veterans and PTSD. A lot of them actually just go incredibly quiet and don't ever speak about anything that took place with anyone, not even with their wife. They don't want to mention it. Right. But it was also part of their age, because it was stiff upper lip time. You didn't talk about your feelings. You didn't talk about anything like that. So opening up to a group, I suppose, and saying, I'm just going to put this out there. If anybody's interested, perhaps you need to come. I'm hoping that there's going to be a lot of people that watch this and that will say, that's something that I'll need.
One thing that happened to me really recently, and the people I work with are the adult children of seniors, and I have one that's going down the dementia journey. And this adult child finally opened up to me just 2 days ago that her father that I'm working with, that I have in a senior community, he was a POW in Vietnam. And she was telling me that she has memories of her. She would wake up in her bed and her father had a shotgun in her face.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So it's...
And she told me that was the reason why her mother divorced her husband, for fear of the children getting hurt. And when the time is right, I want to connect you with this family to help them.
Yes, absolutely.
How many other adult children are suffering from their parents who have been in a war through this?
This is an absolutely fascinating subject, and we could keep talking about it, and we're going to. And we will be right back after these messages.
If all you need is socialization and you're still fairly independent, then there's 3, 4, 5 of these that really would fit that bill. But you tell me, I've got Parkinson's. I've got a progressive situation that is going to, I have these needs now and it's going to be progressive. I'm going to need more things in the future. Or there's a catheter involved or a feeding tube. I mean, all these clinical things will narrow the stage. Some communities can handle feeding tubes, many can't. Some communities can handle catheters, many can't. So tell me what's in your clinical future, and then I'll tell you the best places that have the best reputation for care and the best stability in their nursing staff that I will feel confident putting in a very difficult clinical situation. So tell me your needs, and I'll tell you what my favorite is.
Welcome back to Caring for Seniors. I'm Adrienne Houghton, and I'm here with Andrea Miller from Brain Spotting Therapy USA and the wonderful Alba Gocius from Oasis Senior Advisors. So during the break, we were talking briefly about the fact that you have an extra son.
Yes, we do. He is our son's best friend who moved in with us about 1.5 years ago during his senior year, and we've provided him with housing, a bed, food, clothes, financial assistance, and also a lot of encouragement to keep going, to graduate from high school. And my husband and I were very blessed that we had that opportunity to do that for him. And since then, he has enlisted in or went to boot camp for the Marine Corps, and he's graduated boot camp, and he's now in his second phase of MCT training, Marine Combat Training.
You must be so proud.
Oh my goodness, we are all so proud. And I mean, it's not just my husband and I, it's really a community effort. There's several people that have helped him get to where he has been today. So
this all goes to show that somebody that understands the brain and understands how things work, it's not just a naughty boy, a naughty girl, something that's, there's trauma, there's problems that can be resolved with care.
Yeah.
And you also have a community project, don't you?
I do. My husband and I, we started about 12 years ago with feeding the homeless. From a contest that I won, I decided to give the funds to feed the homeless in downtown Jacksonville. I'm sorry, 15 years ago.
Time flies.
It does. 15 years ago. And so we started that with our family and friends and neighbors. And we continued it every Christmas Eve for the last 15 years. We've had to kind of tweak it a little bit where we've given presents instead of food. But we have just been so incredibly blessed by being able to come together as a community in Clay and Duval and serve the homeless on Christmas Eve, where maybe they're not thought about on Christmas Eve.
Have you helped some of the homeless?
We have. And, when we see people, in the corner, we'll have bags that we'll give them water. I always keep water in my car.
Yes.
Or snacks. And just...
I should have rephrased that for you. Have you helped anyone with therapy?
I would love to do that for a homeless individual.
Shelter?
Oh my goodness. That would be, I think, truly amazing because I know that they've seen trauma. They've been through trauma. I haven't had the opportunity to work doing brain spotting with the homeless population.
But that's actually something that could probably be very beneficial.
Absolutely.
We might have to look into that.
Yes.
Maybe we can do some connections here.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So what are some of the benefits that you see people gain from brain spotting therapy?
So some of the benefits that I've seen is, patients or clients that have fears and phobias. Maybe they had a fear of driving, especially with all the bridges in Jacksonville. They have a fear of driving. And so I've seen them overcome that and kind of get to the resolution of why they have that fear of bridges and driving. I've also witnessed through my trainings and experience where clients have come in with anger issues and we've gotten to the bottom of why they have anger issues. And, just to see them come in as one person and then in the middle of the process, just to be just a different person. I mean, it's truly an honor for me as a therapist to see that transition.
And I'm assuming that each client is totally different. You never have one that's the same as the next.
Right.
So you have a very varied day.
Absolutely. There's so many different traumas that people bring into the sessions, or maybe something that happened recently that they want to discuss.
Can brain spotting be used for anything else? Can it be used? I mean, say for instance, there's a golfer and he's having trouble. He's got the yips. Sports?
Absolutely. Sports performance issues. Absolutely. I was in karate for a brief time, and I could not seem to master a certain kick. And so I decided to call my colleague to see if she could help me with this, because I had tried and tried and tried. I was brain spotted and went to karate immediately after, and I was able to do that kick.
Wow.
Yes, it was really exciting.
What was it?
It was not having enough confidence in myself that I could do the kick and that I didn't have enough power. I would have never thought that because I felt confident when I was doing it. I felt confident that I knew what I was doing.
So you weren't aware that there was a problem, but you knew that you couldn't do the kick.
Right. I knew the result, that I could not do the kick, and I was stuck, and I needed her to unstick me.
Yes, right.
So sports performance, absolutely. It's not just for trauma, anxiety, depression, fears, phobias, anger. It can also be for sports performance, for someone that, maybe I have a dream that, I want to do this certain type of vocation, but I just don't have the confidence to do that.
So it can be used for a number of different things.
It can be used for anything, addiction. I mean, anything that wants to be brain spotted, it can be brain spotted.
And is it for adults only, or could it work with children?
It can really be for anybody. I've worked with teens, as well as older adults in their 70s, and then also middle-aged adults. It really can work for anybody. It's someone who, not really age is a factor, but that they really want to get to the resolution, and they want healing, and they want to move past and be free of their trauma.
Yeah.
The feeling of helplessness.
Yeah. Al, have you come across any people with Oasis where they're frightened of what's been happening with COVID?
I think the older you get, the more you internalize the news and the surrounding information. So yeah, they're very frightened. They're very frightened because they look at the news and they really absorb the negative information.
Yes.
And that's what they process. And it's a shame. And I think partially because of the isolation.
Yes.
So you have a vertical stack of thinkers that are locked in the same place, and you're not getting other thoughts in there. And so they're really challenged to be positive.
Yeah.
Right.
Have you come across a lot of that?
Yes, I've noticed that in my trainings and and witnessing and working with other people, that COVID is a real fear. Absolutely. And, like Al said, the anxiety, the isolation, just the fear. Absolutely. COVID has really wreaked havoc on people that may not have had issues before, but the people that have had issues and traumas before, it's just compacted it and made it a lot worse. Their anxiety and depression and isolation. Absolutely.
How do you think that this is going to pan out? I mean, because we went through 2020 and we thought that was bad. Yeah. Right. And then we thought, well, that's okay because 2021 is going to be great. And then that really didn't turn out to be quite as great as we thought. And now we're in 2022 and everyone's saying, is this just another year?
Right.
Have we got yet another year of it? How do you think this is going to affect children and adults as we move forward? Do you think it's going to make it more difficult for you, or do you think that we're going to have a lot of people that are going to be traumatized but not really realize that these 3 years have actually affected everybody, even though, going along, doing their own thing? How much do you think that's going to affect them?
I think it's going to affect them a lot, because even though things are, people don't have to wear masks as much and they're not homeschooling as much, those times where that happened and the children were isolated, the teachers were isolated, everybody was isolated, the employees were isolated from their jobs, the anxiety, maybe they have depression. And so I think it was kind of just repressed and pushed down, and, now they're back to, semi back to normal, and they're just going to have to, go through the motions and get past it. But it's still locked in their brain. And until it's released,
Are we naturally, as humans, are we naturally pack animals? I mean, are we supposed to be social, or are we supposed to be able to survive on our own? Suck it up and get on with it. What's the balance there?
And that's the key, is having a balance. Everybody needs some alone time, but yet also everybody needs some social time.
Yeah.
So to have that balance, and during COVID, when everybody was working virtual, that was a huge loss.
I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are going to want to connect with you. How do they find you? How do they connect with Andrea?
Well, I do offer a free 30-minute consult call to talk with them about brain spotting, if they would like some more education about brain spotting and how it can help them, and also to find out what their situation is. And also, once we do the 30-minute consult call, if they'd like to book an appointment, I do an intake first, and then our second session, we immediately go straight into brain spotting. So they can call me at 904-404-9861. That's my work cell phone number. I also have a website that they can fill out their demographic information at brainspottingtherapyusa.com. So they can reach me that way. I'm also on psychologytoday.com. They can read my profile there. So there's many ways to connect with me.
I have to say, your website has the most glorious view with this white building and beautiful blue waters. And I just sat there and I was looking at it and I thought, oh, right, yes. And it's absolutely glorious. Tell me you live there, because that is stunning. It really is.
And that's where I want my clients to live. I want them to have that sense of peace.
Oh, that's
tranquility. That's the goal.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming in and talking to us about brain spotting. And don't forget, if you'd like to know any more information about brain spotting therapy, you can go to brainspottingtherapyusa.com, and you can find Andrea Miller on iwannabuzz.com.